idea here is to take some of the ideas that people have known in the F# community and loved them, and make them available to more people. And the general sort of topic here is there's a trend in journalism where more journalists or more people who do some reports are using some interesting data. So this is an article from 2007 when China overtook the US as the largest producer of carbon emissions. And with this article, they didn't actually have any sort of charts there because I guess in 2007 people didn't know how to make charts.
At least in JavaScript.
At least in JavaScript. But here's a more recent article covering the topic from The Economist with an ugly ad. If you scroll all the way down here, then there's a chart that says here we can see when China became the largest producer of carbon emissions. And whenever I see a chart like this in the website, I'm always like, so where do I see the source code? Because it really feels like, well, how can we, first of all, how can we trust them that the numbers are actually right? Like, where are they getting the numbers from? They tell you it's from here, but how can we verify that? Also, it's nice that they give us comparison with China and the US, but maybe what if we wanted to add the third largest country? In this case, I think that's India. So that's sort of the motivation. And in F#, you can actually do this quite easily if you're using type providers and some charting libraries. And the thing I want to just show you quickly is an attempt to bring some of the nice F# features and make it more usable for people who do things like data journalism. And yes, it's called the Gamma, and I'll explain why if you come to the pub after the meetup. So here's an example. So it's looking at the same data at carbon emissions, and here you can see a chart that shows carbon emissions in kilotons for the whole country. So there's some number of kilotons for China, which is the largest carbon emissions producer, and this is using data for 2010. But so there's two things I might wonder here. What if we change the year? And also, this indicator shows the data as like total amount. But what would it look like if we divided it by the number of people living there? So if we get data per capita. And I can actually change it nicely here in the view if I click on the options, and so I'm not showing this because I spent whole day writing a dropdown in JavaScript. There's something more interesting behind it. But let me first show you the dropdown. So we can go here and change it to say 90s. Do refresh, and it will take a bit of time to refresh it. And now you can see that in 90s, US is larger producer, or was larger producer than China. We are also missing data for the Eastern Bloc because they were not releasing it back then. If we go back to 2010, but let's have a look at something else. Let's have a look at carbon emissions per capita. And there's another interesting thing that's happening here, because as you're choosing things, it can show you some metadata about the information. So here, this tells me what the indicator means, where does it come from, what topics does it belong to. And if we select this and do a refresh, then you can see that if you actually measure it per person, then China isn't doing that bad. India, which is the third largest producer overall, is almost green. And the highest carbon emissions per capita producer are some of the small states around here, like Qatar. So that's really interesting, and you can just have a look at the data in a very different way. Now, the reason why I'm showing this is that it's not just a fancy one-off visualization that I built. If we click at the source code here, then this actually gives you the full source code that was needed to produce the chart. And yeah, the first 3 lines are the hardest part. That's picking the nice colors. But then the rest is pretty easy. So this bit here, that's just using a type provider to find the data. And then this bit is just doing the chart. And this is actually using a partly modified editor that the good people at Bayard Rock, who are also nice to host the group, they did it. So here you also get completion where you can see all the available options. And I'm really hoping that this is something that even non-technical people will be able to maybe not write from scratch, but modify and change the data source. So yeah, what we were doing, we were accessing 2010, and then this is a fancier version of the type provider that accesses data from the World Bank because it shows it in nice categories. So you can go to climate change and then pick one of the indicators. And again, this side panel here is exactly the same panel that you were seeing when I was working with the dropdown. And that's because it's actually exactly the same thing. So when I use these options here, if it's not broken,
You need to refresh.
I guess I need to refresh, or I'll just scroll down and pick another sample. So when I choose these options, that's actually generated from the code. So I didn't have to do anything special to get this nice UI on top of my simple visualization. And it's basically just looking for places in the source code where there's something where you have one member out of number of different members that have the same type. It's just one thing that we can do here. But if I change this, if you keep looking at this line, it will actually get reflected there. So it's all, the key idea here is that we really just need to write that simple piece of code. And from that, we get a nice visualization and a nice UI for manipulating it. And if I scroll all the way down, there's another example of this. So this is comparing carbon emissions over last 50 years for different countries. And the editing tool I get here lets me choose a list of countries. So let me drop the Russia. That's always popular. And let's add Brazil instead. And again, as I'm like listing through this, there's a side panel that shows me more information about the country. We can add Brazil. And this is just changing the source code where I'm creating an F-sharp list of countries. And we can refresh it, see the new data. And really, the sort of key idea is that there should be just really simple source code or simple thing behind it. So that whole report was just this markdown document with some embedded snippets of code. And because the visualization is just that simple snippet of code, we can build a lot of fancy tools on top of that. And I think that's pretty much all I wanted to show you. So yeah, that's it. So thank you.
Tomas, it's kind of Markdown. You have code when you do an indent. You just hijack that.
Yeah. I basically look for the indented code and then run it, or translate it to JavaScript and then run it.
Sure. I mean, instead of doing a code block, you do a visualization block.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd like to get some journalists to actually use it because I think it could make the reports more trustworthy and reproducible and more fun. But I think it's also useful for companies who are doing some internal reports where if you're producing something that your management should be able to look at, or your customers should be able to look at and understand, you could probably use this kind of thing as well.